Audio Jungle.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for taking time to come down today. I'm Tsing from SGInnovate, and today we are very happy to present to you our last event of 2018 with General Assembly. But don't worry, 2019, we have a lot more in store for you. So do keep a lookout on General Assembly's website and SGInnovate's website as well. Yeah, at SGInnovate, we believe Singapore has the resources and capabilities to tackle hard problems from around the world. And part of our efforts includes knowledge sharing sessions like the one you are here for today. So without further ado, I'll pass the mic on to Gabriela from GA to start us off. Gabriela, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Gabriela. I work as a marketing manager at a company called General Assembly, or GA, as Zing mentioned. How many of you have heard about our company? Hands up. How many have visited our event before? A few more? Okay. So thank you so much for coming again, or coming for the first time, and I hope you will like today's evening. Let me just share a little bit more about General Assembly. We are a technology education company, so even though we are not focusing on healthcare, we are focusing on educating people in technology area. That means we are educating people who can transfer healthcare to digital health technologies, and build new products who can innovate and help healthcare to come to next level. Today we will be talking with amazing ladies from CMO Technologies, Healing, DocDoc, Lim, Ear, Nose, Throat and Hearing Center, and Gallant Growth Asia. So let me just introduce Helen, and she will lead the whole evening. Feel free to ask questions anytime, and let's make it interactive and nice evening. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Well, thank you very much, SGInnovate and General Assembly, for organizing this event. That's very nice of you, and a warm welcome to everyone tonight. My name is Helen. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Gallant Growth Asia. I'm actually French-Canadian. So for those of you who are wondering what the heck is this accent, it's from Canada, the French part. So Gallant Growth Asia is a very young enterprise. We are only 3 years old. But we have a big mandate. Our mandate is to build the health tech ecosystem across Asia. And how do we do that? Well, we actually do that with, of course, ourselves hosting a few events, because we truly believe that we need to build the health tech community in order to, empower the ecosystem. But most of our work is done with Fortune 500 companies, global investors, and startup. And we work with them in order to accelerate their health tech strategy, aka digital health. The reason why we are able to do that is because we have built one of the most comprehensive health tech startup database across Asia. And this database, powered by our own analytic, is actually captures 2,000 plus health tech startup across Asia. And for each of them, we have more than 60 data points. And of course, ranging from, the date of incorporation, the team, the funding, the valuation, but as well as trying to understand what is their actual solution, and what is the health tech category that they sit in, and what are they really trying to solve? What pain point are they trying to solve? So as you can probably imagine, this gives us an amazing overview of capturing what is happening in health tech in Asia. And we do this not only for ourselves, but we share the knowledge with everyone by publishing twice a year our health tech investment landscape report. So the next one will be our year-end report. I will be available beginning of January, and it's available for all to download for free. Just go to our website and subscribe, gallantgrowth.asia. So an event like the event that we have tonight is extremely important, because even though I tell you all that, and I tell you that the space is very, vibrant and dynamic, we all need to learn from the health tech startup themselves, and also from the clinicians that are now building project that we will hear a bit more later with Dr. Lin. So I will welcome all of my panelists to go sit at their chair. Apparently it's each person underneath the picture. So please, Sadaf, I will welcome you to go right there. Merlin, Dr. Lim, and Grace. There you go. We have everyone. I have an extra mic here. Someone needs one? Okay, there you go. Okay, so let's get started with one question for the audience. Can people tell us, is there startups here, health tech startups? Raise your hand. A few there, okay. Do we have a lot of students? A few students? Corporates? Okay, a few corporates. Investors? What investor? Do I have a few? Okay. Okay, so it's quite diverse tonight. Okay, so well, listen. Let's start this panel by, I guess, of course, the first question. Please, I will invite you to introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, where you were born and raised, what you studied in, but as well as what you are doing now, and what is your current project. Starting with Sada.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I'm Sadaf. I'm the co-founder and director of CMOD Technologies. I was born in Iran. I had a bachelor in electrical engineering and a dual degree in biomedical engineering. Then I came to Singapore. I did my PhD here in US, focusing on the applications of machine learning and AI for solving medical problems. And after finishing my PhD, together with my co-founder, we started CMOD. What we do is that we try to help clinicians better predict stroke, which is the second leading cause of death. The way that a stroke is managed right now, it's pretty poor. It has a very high recurrence rate. And what we do is that we automatically analyze the routine medical images, being ultrasound, CT scans, MRIs, and provide particular risk factors that are associated with the risk of a stroke. The technology is built on top of computer vision, AI, and computational modeling. We right now are running clinical trials with the major hospitals here in Singapore and also in Australia. I try to keep it short.
That's excellent, thanks. Marilyn?
Okay, I'll try to keep up with that concise. My name is Marilyn. I'm French. I was born in France. I'm going to try to do the same thing. I was born in France. I studied only business, so I'm commercial side. I have no scientific and not technical background, so you wonder why I'm sitting in health tech startup, but it's okay. I'm going to try to explain. I started my career in investment banking and consulting, and then somehow I decided to put some values into my life. It just happened, and I joined the pharmaceutical industry, and I worked for Janssen for 6 years, and as I discovered the world of patients through the drugs, and I decided to have a more patient-centric view. So now patient-centric is quite used, but really to support patients. And I came to Asia 3.5 years ago in Singapore, and I started to build a patient support program for a pharmaceutical company in Asia Pacific. Along the way, I made a lot of startups, and I realized that I could probably help, but also use the solutions that were being developed. And that's how I met the founders of Healint. Healint was co-founded by 3 INSEAD people. And I'm proud to represent them because I'm also part of INSEAD, but definitely not a co-founder. Healint is a company that started actually in the stroke business in the way they were thinking. They wanted to predict strokes because one of the co-founders' dad had a stroke. And they entered through the sensors, found out that they were not probably strong enough, but they realized that if we were to predict an event, that probably we would have a patient impact. And they developed the largest platform for invisible chronic disease, which means it's a disease that cannot be sensed by through an X-ray or sensors, biovitals, and they entered this way. For the first disease was migraine. We have 1.5 million patients supported through the platform, and we're able to predict a migraine 3 days in advance. It might seem I don't know if it seems big or small to anyone, but there's 10% of the population suffering migraines, and a chronic migraine prevents you from doing anything, working, moving, or anything. And so by entering this predictive world, they are starting to build algorithms, and then they can analyze, I don't know, a million stuff. And we're able to predict more events. So that's the business we're in. Now, if I talk a bit of tech, and I'm not tech, I'll try to do this, to make, we have, let me remember what they told me. And I didn't say what I was doing, but I'm the commercial arm of Healint, meaning that I sell the solutions, and the solutions meaning I sell data. We are the only database in the world where you can access real-time data. So I can open a window on our database and you can instantly see someone that has a migraine, but you can define the choice. Yeah, you can define if you want to see a woman in Australia, 34 years old, if she's had this or that, if she slept this morning, if she had a symptom, did she use this drug, and that's the sort of things we do, and we publish constantly. And I think that's the important thing. So just to give you a perspective of the size of the database, that's the number I'm supposed to remember. We have 500 gigabytes of data. The mom, no one is from the mom here? No? They have 10. We have 500. This is the size of the database of Healing today. Anyway, and I apologize if I seem slow sometimes. I'm quite jet lagged and landed last night, so well, thank you.
All good. Don't worry, it doesn't show at all, actually. Grace?
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Grace Park. I was born in Los Angeles, California. I'm Korean American. I went to West Point, the United States Military Academy, and served as an officer for 5 years in military intelligence. And after my service, I wanted to come into healthcare. I was recruited by the CEO of Bristol Myers Squibb, who's a naval officer, and was able to translate the 5 years of work I did as an officer into corporate. And so it just made my life a lot easier, but to be a change agent in the organization. And then I went off to business school, Harvard Business School and the Kennedy School of Government, because in healthcare, in my profession, I see oftentimes that business and government are so intertwined, and so obtained my dual master's degree there, and came out to Asia on a Fulbright fellowship, and meant to stay for only 9 months, but I love this place, Asia Pacific. There's just so much opportunity, and went on to medical devices to have P&L responsibility, my last role being managing director of Southeast Asia for Medtronic. And then I jumped off the corporate platform and started DocDoc. And so I'm the co-founder and president of DocDoc. What we do is we're the Asia's leading patient empowerment and doctor discovery company. What we do is to collect hundreds of data points on a per doctor basis, and we use our predictive analytics to be able to then match doctors in our intermediate markers of outcomes, price, and experience, our definition of quality, to then match it up with the patients. So you can imagine, and on top of that, we also have man plus machine. So we also have our contact center, doctors inside DocDoc, who's able to help patients through navigating the healthcare system. And so if you could imagine what it is today, what is status quo, oftentimes when we do have to find a doctor for our need, it's done anecdotally or through friends and family, but we don't have the data points or can make data-driven healthcare decisions, and that's in essence what we do at DocDoc. Why I started, the purpose behind the company actually started from a deeply personal experience. My daughter was born healthy, but at her 2-month-old checkup, normal checkup, she was diagnosed as having a rare liver condition and was told by the doctor, you must admit her to the hospital immediately, and ultimately she needed to have a liver transplant. For us, being complete shock at that stage, we asked some of the basic questions I think a mom or dad would ask. Doctor, how many times have you done a liver transplant? How much is it going to cost? What are your outcomes? You know, the other children that have survived and are thriving, hopefully, from the liver transplant. And unfortunately, the answers to those questions weren't forthcoming. And so that's when my husband, who's actually the co-founder and CEO of DocDoc, and I embarked on our own personal journey to find that right doctor. And so what DocDoc is that solution that we personally didn't have. I'm happy to share that my daughter is thriving today. We did find the right doctor who, by comparison, has one of the pioneers of live liver transplants. He's done thousands of these surgeries. Also, come to find out, he was 60% less in terms of cost. Despite being a pioneer, having that level of disparity in price was eye-opening for us as well. And so this is what we do. We're able to help empower patients by allowing them to have information for the patients to make their own healthcare decisions.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Lynn, and I'm a ear, nose, throat surgeon, ENT surgeon. And and first when I was invited here, I was wondering what am I doing in the presence of the presidents and the chiefs and the directors. I'm just a surgeon. So I'm Singaporean. Yes. So
Just a surgeon.
yes. So I graduated from the National University of Singapore medical faculty, and then my ENT specialization degree was from the Royal College of Surgeons, Edinburgh. Thereafter, as doctors, you have to go on to a lot of sub-specialization. And so I did that in USA, in California, in Cincinnati, in Boston, and then also in Japan. For the last 20 years, I've been first 10 years in Singapore General Hospital, and then another 10 years in the National University Hospital. And 4 years ago, I went out to private practice and started my own clinic. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what I think is relevant along the journey here for today's talk. I think the first would be that as a young doctor, I had a lot of chance to go on humanitarian missions. So although I am based in Singapore, because the healthcare here is more advanced than in some neighboring countries, I had the chance to actually go to many hospitals, see many spectrums of diseases, see what the healthcare situation is like there, and that has really helped, I think, in this innovation. Coming back to the NUS, to the National University of Singapore and the hospital, as an academic, I had the opportunity to do teaching. From teaching, you learn a lot, and there were many grant fundings actually available to research institutions. So I was a very competitive researcher, and so it was good. We had a lot of grants. I managed to work with many talented people. Yeah, so that was really helpful. And then I felt, goodness, I felt like I didn't really know how to apply whatever I have learned, and I wanted to integrate research, education, clinical, and also the administrative part of medicine a bit better. So I did a Master of Public Health in Boston. So we're alumni with many of you. Yeah. When I returned to Singapore, I was the Vice Dean of the Academic Affairs at the National University Hospital, and that gave me a real, I realized how difficult it is actually for doctors and for the medical people, the non-doctors, maybe the pharmacists, the biologists, anatomists, and all this biochemistry people, how difficult it is actually to really do everything. They have to teach, they have to, for the clinicians, they have to do clinical work. A lot of the research is actually at night, after office hours and the weekends. And so if I have a chance, I hope to be able to help them next time to smooth the way a little bit. And then just coming out to private 4 years ago, it's very interesting. In Singapore, I don't know whether any government people are here, I hope not. But so there I was doing research for 20 years. I'm very passionate, got a lot of grants. Once I left for private practice, I was like a pariah. So it's like you're taken like you're gone out to the dark side. You're only interested in money. But of course, that's not the truth. Yeah, I mean, when you're interested in research, you never quite give it up. So you just continue. But coming out to private was really helpful because it opened up new networks, people whom I would never have met, and it introduced me to the more commercial side of things, and the more I could actually be more patient-centric. Because there were fewer patients to see, you could really spend time with them, and in the private sector, it's of course not no hand-holding. Yeah, so everything is real life, it's fast, and so I have really learned so much. What am I? CEO of nothing, but I am the co-founder and the co-primary investigator of this device. Okay, maybe I'll show it later. So I have we are. For the last 7-8 years, I've been working on actually a novel device that is meant to actually insert a grommet tube, which is a very small ear tube, it's 1 millimeter in size, onto the eardrum of very small children, maybe below the age of 5 usually. And what this grommet tube inserted on the drum does is that it drains fluid that is trapped behind the middle ear, behind the eardrum. Because this fluid that is there for a long time actually leads to hearing loss, it leads to learning difficulties, academic difficulties, behavioral issues, sometimes really bad infections. Not in Singapore, but overseas people do die from those infections. And the current state is that to get this very simple ear tube, which is small, 1 millimeter, onto the eardrum, you need to go through a very long process. So you see the doctor, they list you for surgery. The surgery has to be under general anesthesia. You fast overnight, and then you come to a cold operating theater, and you are very afraid because you have to undergo general anesthesia, right? And a lot of parents actually are really afraid for their kids. And so many do not take up this procedure, even though it helps the child. When you're in the operating theater, of course, the operating theater is very expensive. People don't know, but to make one operating theater in Singapore, it's about $1 million. Yeah, to make a theater, and you need for that simple 5-minute surgery. It becomes an hour long because of all this GA of the manpower that's needed. Maybe 5 to 10 people in the theater servicing that theater. With multiple change of instruments, with a surgical microscope, which could be 50 to 100,000 just for the microscope. And then you use some very simple instruments, and the surgeon puts that tube into the ear. All right? So I was really frustrated. I was on a humanitarian mission up really in a mountain. And I could do big surgeries under local anesthesia, but I could not put a small grommet tube into the eardrums for hundreds of kids who had trekked for many days just to reach there. And so that's how we started working on this device. So I wanted to show you, this is I'm hoping to really put this in my pocket and go up the mountain and press this. So this is Clicks, C-L-I-K-X, and I named it like that because I want to be able to insert this device with just a click of the finger and in under 1 second. All right, so where we are now is that we have a prototype, but it is, we need about 1.5 years before real clinical trials. Thank you.
Excellent, very interesting. Thank you very much. Well, I guess that it's a good segue to understand. I mean, there are many challenges, as we all know, of course, and especially in healthcare, because it is a very traditional industry and a bit slow. We have to say it. Maybe if I start with you, Sadaf, what are the challenges that you are facing building your solution? A bit like maybe Dr. Lim, is it like sometimes just different market as well could potentially bring some challenges, but as well as maybe the industry? What have you encountered as challenges?
So for us, coming from the PhDs, starting any sort of startups, there are many challenges. The first being that you don't have any business background, so there are many terms that you're not familiar with. But aside from that, for healthcare startups, because they're directly dealing with patients' lives, it's more challenging and it's for a good cause. So one of the most challenging parts, I guess, for any startups working in the healthcare area would be the regulations and providing the evidence that your product is actually doing what it's supposed to do. In that sense, I would say that initially it's pretty tough to just pick up the languages, make sure what you want to do, what is your path for the regulation. But I guess for startups, the best way is to just learn from the more established startups or more established companies. For example, if, I don't know, you want to go for the States, you go for FDA and you can find like the summary of all of the other companies, all of the other startups that obtain the regulation. The second challenging part for us would be accessing data in the hospitals because we are an AI company and we need data. I can share the story that how we tackled it. The way that we started as the co-founders of the company, we actually started the prototype, started the first version of the algorithm on the scans of the two of us, the two co-founders. So we went for a scan, we got the images, and we started working on it. And after a while, we had a small data set, and we built the prototype, which was working. It wasn't perfect, but it was working. So we went to the hospitals with the prototype, and told them that it's working. If you want, you can start sharing data with us. There is always the concern of handling like the security issues, make sure that patient information is not accessible to anyone. But yeah, I would say that for us, the second challenge was having access to data.
Thank you very much. Marilyn?
So I have to find other challenges. So those challenges, and then I add, and then I think we'll all add. So I'm not the founder, like I said. So you see, I came late in the journey, not because I didn't know them, but because they didn't have cash. And to be honest, when you don't have cash, you don't pay the people. And so one of my child arrived here, but I have 3 kids, and I need to feed them. So I couldn't join. And it seems like this, but it will last for a long time. So that's why you keep hearing, I think there's an investor in the room, hey. No, but I think this language of startup and investor comes into a point where you need to raise funds because you need to pay people to accelerate. So I think the first challenge is to find the cash, whether it's through investors, family, friends, or other means, yeah? And I think that was one. The second, I would say, because of what you said, I'm going to say the second challenge for us, if I keep 2, is that you have to choose a journey, and they had to choose. And you can choose when you deal with data, I think, you can choose to go FDA approved, yeah? So, or clinical trials. That means you need a short cohort, but you need a long time. So whatever, you need to find the people that will last, and you need to go all the way to the approval. It costs a lot. The other option is you validate by the mass of people, so you can guess which one we chose, and we chose the mass, yeah. But it also takes time to build that mass of patients, and I think this is defining who the company is, yeah. Because you're going after one journey, you can't go really to this, you can't change like this, yeah. And we find often that among the startups they chose one or the other, and there's either the opportunity in front of you because you actually managed to succeed one path, or because you actually started and you're validating something and it's working. But choosing your journey is defining who you are, and I don't think when they started they thought they would go this way, and now it's easy for me to say, but I think those 2 challenges make someone move along. So yeah, I want to shorten the challenges.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Grace?
Sure. Just to build on the 2, I just fully totally agree. Yeah. I think finding the right talent in the early days of a startup is very important. I mean, a company is, if anything, it's the people. And as you start off, you don't have that brand name recognition, right? And wooing people from the big corporates, from the Medtronics or the Boston Scientifics or the J&Js to come and work, they're quite comfortable. They're getting well paid, and so in the early days, you just have an idea. And so that is definitely a huge challenge. It wasn't only until about 3 years ago for us at DocDoc we were able to bring in the right person. Dr. Dan Riskin comes from Silicon Valley. He's actually our lead clinical informaticist. And this kind of talent is a rare find, basically having a coding background, a doctor background. He's a trauma surgeon, critical care surgeon, and also a data scientist. And so he's all in one, whereas oftentimes you have to find that talent in 3 different people, and it's really hard to marry those 3 together, whereas you're working at the seams and finding that. And so based on that, we're able to then build our knowledge model, right? Build the knowledge model, and I think he's probably, one of 8 clinical informaticists in the Silicon Valley. It's really a hard talent to find. And we brought on board a couple of other clinical informaticists from Sloan Kettering. And so from that, and then those 3 doctors who are leading our clinical informatics work are able to then build that knowledge model that we've been searching for, to be able to have our intermediate markers and break down how we define quality in outcomes, price, and experience. So, we always hear about in healthcare, there's just so much data, but oftentimes it's unstructured, right? It's essentially dead data. But to be able to come in and have that knowledge model and to build that so that the data can be poured into that was a key hire for us, and a key win to allowing us to be who we are and to be able to build out DocDoc.
So I think maybe I'll speak from the surgeon's, doctor's perspective. For myself and for many of my colleagues, we spend many years just trying to subspecialize and to be good at what we're doing. So there was nowhere in our training that taught us how to commercialize a product, how to make investors interested, how to get funding. And so that required actually a whole new change of mindset. And a lot of learning, outside hours, meeting new people. And the team that grew with me at research, we started in 2010. And the team that was with me was at first an engineer, 2 engineers, and then later the 3rd engineer, and myself, just the 4 of us. And we wrote hundreds of research papers, we did all kinds of things, but we had no commercialization kind of expertise. So that's one key thing. But if you're interested, you will learn. And I think the team has stayed together, and so that's important. We learn along the way. The second thing I found very difficult for myself was when I went to private as practice, as you know. And the big thing was there was no more research funding. So like research funding in Singapore is usually ring-fenced for institutions. For example, the NUS, the SGH, and where all the key researchers are. So once you step out into the private sector, you actually have no money to continue with the research, and that was quite a shock to me. And if I'm ever in a position, I hope to change this, because there are very many good talents actually outside. And people who move out to private practice, actually they're at a stage of their life where they really want to do such stuff. And they actually have the time and they have the inclination, but I do not see this talent being tapped, and that is a bit sad to me, after training them for 20 years and then this talent is lost. So that was a big challenge point for me. The third was, I think, because we had a prototype, but we needed to get extra funding before the clinical trial. So a lot of work needs to go into product development, proper development, quality management, looking at quality management, really protecting the IP, getting legal help in, starting to think about commercialization, even starting to think about distribution channels, commercial models and all that, and very importantly, getting through the regulatory. So this 2 years, I have until the end of 2019, and where I would have to get the product ready to do clinical trials, all right? This is the valley of death. This is the valley of death where everybody fails. 90% of startups for deep tech devices like this fail, all right? Because this is not, this is deep technology. The runway is very long. There's very high risk. We are not building on technology that is already there, for example, like some digital health technologies. And so this is very high risk, and investors are not so willing to come in till you're quite near to clinical trial, or they see, I need to wave to the investor, and then till they see that that we have a good team that is there, right, ready. So that is this valley of death thing is terrifying, and it's so I was very, very fortunate to actually be introduced to SGI. When I was introduced to SGI, it was very interesting. SGI wasn't really formed yet. About two plus years ago, when I first met with Steve, who was the CEO, and presented to him, I kept asking him, what is SGI, because it was not really set up. Yeah, and he said, don't worry, they'll be fine, we'll have funding, we'll be able to help you. And I didn't really know what I was signing up for, yeah. But of course, in business, it really is a gut feeling. I just had a really good feel with him, and I thought, it's fine, it's okay. I don't know what I'm signing to, but it's okay. So now we are having help with all of these, and so this was an important thing. And I would like to, I think, second what Grace said, really about the team. So it is, the challenge really is trying to keep your team together, because it's a very long runway of 10 years or more, and people get sick, people get pregnant, people get married. Okay, so you need to be able to stay together and to keep everybody enthusiastic. You need to be able to have people step out, step back, and if you don't need them, they need to step out for a while and come back. And so I think that's important. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. I can relate to that with my small team as well. I mean, you work constantly together, and it feels like it's just a big family with the family problems. So, but I think that that's an interesting angle as well, the sense that we all know, I mean, and we all hear the challenges that you guys, or you girls, I should say, had. But this funding aspect is extremely important. And for those of you who wants to, start maybe your own venture in health tech, I think that I would like to hear from you what has been the challenges. Marilyn, maybe you haven't been part of the first round, but you do know, the second round. So I would like to have your thoughts on this. Any advice how to go about with an investor, how to present, what they should think of?
I'll talk about the second round, so you're in for the first round.
Okay. So we just had one round. We are a 1-year-old company. So a couple of months back, we closed our seed round. I would say, fortunately, it was pretty fast and smooth. So I hope it keeps going that way. But about the challenges, there is one thing that I believe the founders of the startups should be really aware of, is that make sure that you're choosing the right type of investor, especially if you are in healthcare. So in healthcare, if you're doing something innovative, something really technical, the success doesn't happen over time. You need patience and you need to be brave. It should be the same for the investor as well. So they shouldn't be like pushy investors that ask for revenue in 6 months, a year from starting the company. I would say that is really important. It's something that the entire ecosystem should be aware of if they want to invest in healthcare. But hopefully, if you're patient and brave, then you will have a huge impact, both socially and financially. So,
thank you.
Sure. I think one of the things that I learned as a new entrepreneur is that in the early stages, you're constantly fundraising. I think oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we would like to tuck that away into a bucket and then continue on focusing on the operations, which is really what you're there for, right? But I personally am very fortunate. My co-founder and husband, CEO, came from Temasek Holdings, of investing in technology, media, telecom companies for 7 years prior to coming on board with me in this doc journey. And it was a tremendous leg up advantage for me to be able to have that know-how, whether it's the ecosystem, the entire fundraising ecosystem, the people. But surely I was part of that whole fundraising effort, and it's really a full-time thing. I think just overall in general about fundraising, I think Galen Growth Asia did a phenomenal job of putting some numbers together.
Thank you.
And here I think this year is expected to finish at US $5.5 billion.
Yeah, just for Asia alone, yeah.
For Asia alone. But I think when you dig a little bit more into those numbers, and look at Singapore, right? Like, what about us here in Singapore? I think the first half, roughly, it was reported to have $16 million raised across 6 companies. And I think Doc took about a third of that allocation. So it's limited, I think, here. But I think that what we see as US companies now paying attention to our part of the world. I think just recently, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, there's 2 to 3 new companies that decide to set up shop, HQ here in Singapore, and really and have healthcare as one of its area of interest. And I think that there's going to be more to come. So I think I'm very optimistic about that. Even though China is taking the lion's share of the funding thus far, I think there are Chinese investors also looking into Southeast Asia. And so we could ride the coattails of that as well. So whether it's from the West or out from China, I think I'm a lot more optimistic moving forward. And it's just to stay focused in on changing that mindset of, we're continually networking and talking and fundraising. And I think that's changing that mindset can help you, I think, see fundraising in a different way. But I have hope. I think that here in Southeast Asia and also in Singapore particularly, especially as Singapore is a fantastic location to have as HQ, we'll see a lot more investors coming into healthcare.
Absolutely. Marilyn, second round, what do you?
I can't say about the first round. I can only say who they are now, and we have one American, one Japanese, and one Singapore fund. So that's the 3 VC in the seeds round. And I think I agree with both of you. As a result, a few years later, you need to choose the right investor, whether they guide you, they continue to trust you, or they don't force you to sell for something you don't want to sell, because you're choosing a journey and you want to make that impact, yeah? And so you don't want to betray yourself, you don't want to betray why you did it. And I think that's, for the founder, it's a hard thing. And then we're raising fund as a Series A, if you call, but it got delayed because they were taken in the operational world. And it's just so massive, the amount of work, that there's no time, but you need the money and this balance. You're right, it's a constant fundraising. So today, as we are exploring and discussing on a continuous basis with everyone, you not only need to choose the right one, you need to convince the whole lot, and they need to bid. And so it's a real journey, and you feel that you're in the middle and your day can't be extended, 24 hours, it's 15 hours doing operation, and the rest you're dreaming about getting some funding. So, well, Valley of Death, no, I don't know like this one. But I think
there's a huge impact on the team as well.
It is huge, and we keep reminding, yes, we will succeed. So I think, well, we went to your Gallon Growth, investor meeting, and you're hoping that someone sees you, but the right someone sees you, and they have a choice in front of them. And in Singapore, there are more and more startups. So the good thing is that everyone is looking, but the harder thing is that everyone is pushing each other. But I think it's going to be okay, like you say. It's just we need to be optimistic, but I think we quite fast, and I'm not being long in there. You have no sight. You're looking, as much as you can, and let's see. And everyone is asking you, what number, what this? I have numbers all day long, so just whichever, just give me. Hopefully it will work, yeah. Let's see.
I think what I hear from you guys, and I think that everyone should know about this, the thing is that for a lot of startup, they go and they meet a lot of investors, but an investor that will be fully dedicated to health tech and will only invest in health tech is quite rare. So as a health tech startup, one of the challenges that the startup will face is to convince the investor that this is the right area to invest. And as we all know, healthcare is not exactly the same ROI, right? So it's not as fast as fintech, for example. So I can completely relate to what you are saying. We have a few more minutes, and I think that to close this panel, an interesting thing that we should all hear about is once you've been, working hard building your startup and all the challenges, but as well as the opportunity that you have along the way. I know that most of you have done partnerships, and this is a way to scale. And I would like to hear a bit more about your experience and trying to find some partners to scale your business to help with your solution. Maybe Grace, would you like to start? Because you are also partnering with insurers, and I saw different partners that you have on your website. Maybe if you can try and help us understand.
So DocDoc, we actually started out as B2C, and then we moved to B2B. And, because I think one of the key areas where in the marketplace, what we're seeing here is patient empowerment. And I think InsurTech, as part of health tech, is one of these areas that is ripe for disruption. And these are here in Singapore. We have the HQs of several of these insurance companies, and as incumbents, they know that their lunch is going to be taken if they don't do something or and just get disrupted by these startups, right? And and I think that they have a choice, either to play the price war, which no one wants to do, or they can actually provide value to their policyholders and to their employees. And so based on that, it's being able to be a part of that, in front of that flow of patients. And that's why partnering up with strategics, partners that actually make sense, and for us at DocDoc to provide that value to the policyholders. So as part of our business model, we're free to patients, we're free to doctors, and our model is that we get paid by the insurance companies and these corporate clients, right? There's no bias in terms of the commercial nature of this, in terms of choice or selection of the doctor. It's completely the patient's choice. And that's really where the value goes to the patient in being able to have data and make informed decisions on who they want. Otherwise, the status quo is oftentimes the insurance companies just throw a directory of doctors, right? And how do you choose from 1 to 50 of all the cardiologists here in Singapore? It's hard. So we're able to provide that information so that patients can decide. And so I think that one of the couple of things to share about why going B2B to C made sense is also because the customer acquisition cost is very high, going straight up to B2C. And also, if you think about it, I took Grab coming over here. I take, these taxi apps on a daily basis. And so that's just part of my daily routine, whereas the average person probably goes to see their doctor maybe once or twice a year, on average, right? And so to be B2C as a healthcare service, it's not easy to have that stickiness with the patient. So part of the B2B to C play is to be in front of that flow of patients, and you're providing that service to the policy holder, and it's a win-win situation with the insurance or corporate clients as well. And so for you, find who your strategics are. There are plenty of big players. I know there's some corporates here. I'm not sure which side of the corporate side, but it's a changing world, and startups are finding innovative ways of being able to service the patients, and so it surely is ripe for disruption.
Yeah, completely agree. Marilyn, I know that Healand has done a few partnership as well.
The largest partnership that is known for Healand is Novartis, and Novartis has been in the news. And Novartis is a big pharmaceutical company, and it's not obvious for a pharmaceutical company to join forces with a startup. So it's sort of a bit of a scary for them as much as it scared us, because it was this massive company coming to us. And you have to respect all their processes and I think to go along what they want. So to the point of it actually accelerated some of the development, but it slowed down on the other side because you need to go through their regulatory compliance legal. So I think it's a great opportunity, and we're about to extend and continue, and it grows. But you can't fail that one, because if you fail that one, your credibility is lost for any other one. However, because we have this big one, the others are looking and trying to approach, but say, oh, you already have one partnership. Yeah, but you can still come close to me, and talk to me. I'm still nice, And they're like, yeah, but this one. So this is something you need to open eyes, because you're this tiny thing, and then they're thinking, how can this tiny thing partner with so many big ones? And it's because we have a lot of data. Remember, that's what I said at the beginning. So anyway, we're looking at other partners, and I think it's the diversification of partners that will give us, greater opportunities. And you're right, the B2C is so we are, have this massive users, and the acquisition and retention is our hardest work. And then we are processing the data, and we need to find a way. So we're about to go into partnership for people that have a large pool of patients, because this is one of our biggest issues, to get more data. So partners to accelerate the development, partners to sell to, partners to distribute, and this you need to absorb. And we're growing as fast as we can, and I can see my team there, and it's a new team. It's 20 people handling the world, and we're fighting here all day long. But partners are essential. Without them, I don't think we would have built the right credibility, to be honest. I don't know, but everyone talks about that partnership in the news, and we'll be having more, but that first one was essential. It's the first step, and yeah, the founders did it, so.
Yeah, thank you. Sadaf, partnership with hospital, I guess, on your side?
Yep. So for us, the core of the company is based on research now. So the most important partnership for us would be partnering with hospitals and research institute to make sure that we have the key opinion leaders on board to prove the power of the solution that we are providing. So right now we are in partnership with the major hospitals in Singapore. We also started a multi-center trial in Australia with the 4 major hospitals in Melbourne, and starting working with a hospital in the States as well. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely. We are almost running out of time here. Dr. Lim, any partnership that you see coming in the near future?
Maybe I'll just I'll just speak about something related. So like for me, like as a research group, trying to maybe work with a partner, we were at the stage where we could try to get more research funding, right? Or there was an accelerator, an incubator who wanted to work with us and who wanted to fund some seed money. And then there was, of course, SGI. So they're very different. If you look at them, one is research in an institution, one is an accelerator, and one is somewhere in between, right? So I think as researchers and as the founders, we often hold on too tightly to our product. We are so worried about it, we do not want to give it up, and we just want to make it perfect. But it is not to the best interest, actually, of this product to do that. There never will actually be a final great product. It's going to go through many rounds of iteration. So it's you'll never have that great product till much later. And I found that we actually have to start talking to investors and to try and sell the product, even when we do not have a product yet, right? So like maybe about 3 years ago, we had a product, but it's maybe not at the final version that we have now, not as good. And at that time, I remember this big struggle I had with my engineers. Engineers are brilliant people. So they are so perfect and perfectionist, and they refuse to let me start talking about clicks to anyone. They kept telling me it's not yet done, it's not yet done. But I realized we had to start talking, especially because at that time we cannot be hiring CEOs and people to be talking for us, and we had to do all the talking, and we are not trained to talk. We had a hard time trying to sell. Yeah, so all this took years. Actually, it took 2-3 years to just learn to talk comfortably about this and to try and sell it, to interest people in it. And in the meantime, you keep working on the product. So I think as a research person, as a founder, you have to do this very early. Start looking for partners very early and thinking investors and commercialization really early.
Can I just say, there are some studies to cell. I studied cell. It's not tech, it's not engineering, it's not medicine, and it's not BS. I mean, a lot of people think that commercialization is like an easy thing. You go knock at the door and say hello, but it doesn't work this way, by the way. It takes time. And B2B, the average length of a cell of B2B, if any one of you has done it, it counts in months. Yeah, and that's because you're successful. It could count years. So this is important commercial. And I work with tech. I'm getting closer to those engineers. I was raised by one. We are the number 26 version of the one app. It's just madness. 26. Julien knows the first version. 26. They just go on and on, perfection, debugging, and blah blah. And you're like, oh my God, but this is perfect. This is engineer. So I think you're right. Find the balance on the perfection of a product which doesn't exist, and the reality of commercialization, who takes time. So you did the right thing, I guess. I want to use it, by the way. My son has this ear thing, and I refused the surgery. So.
Well, as a word of wisdom to finish this panel before we take some Q&As from the audience, I can tell you one thing. What we are seeing on our side is that more and more big companies are willing to work with startups, and we keep on telling people that health tech is not a vertical. It actually crosses all kinds of industry, name it the pharma, but you can also have tech. Even car industry right now are looking at a health tech solution, bringing wellness while you drive. So just so you know, it's an amazing space. And for those of you that are inspired by what you heard tonight, we do have a lot of challenges in the industry, but I mean, it's quite amazing what is happening right now. So thank you all very much. Yeah. Gabriela, are you going to take some question from our audience?
Hello, my name is Rahika, and the question is actually directed to Marlene. So I come from the banking sector. Actually, I don't come from healthcare. So the reason why I'm here today is I am from the technology side, but from a different sector. So Marlene, the question is directed to you. I understand you came from an investment banking background. So what made you switch, and how difficult was the change in sectors from a banking to a healthcare sector?
It could take hours to do this. This is not a... So I don't have a traditional background. I did investment banking just because my dream was to work in New York as a young one. You know, I just went there, New York, yeah, hey, I worked 110 hours a day. I do work 110 hours a week, sorry. But this is how I calculated, as you can see. Today I work more, so I'm not sure.
Not sure you've gained anything, right?
I don't know how I can advise. We have to be positive in this panel, because I keep saying we're challenges and stuff. Okay, so the good thing about investment, and you know, in the VC world, they would tell you better, but the VC world is looking for analysis, so strategic thoughts, you know, numbers, so all the people that have done investment banking, CFOs and stuff, and the startup, like the crazy people. And those three things you want to do, yeah? So I have done investment banking, consulting, and guess what? I was missing one. I don't know if I'll end up in the VC, but for me, it was just because I kept advising some people here, coaching there, and I was like thinking, I'm missing this opportunity. So I don't know if it's easy or hard. The one big thing that I found hard, to be honest, was to switch from whatever industry I was in before to healthcare, because the healthcare without a scientific background is the big part. Now the tech thing, I don't need it. I have a team that is so tech savvy. They're all millennials. I'm like the old one, and this, you know, and I barely can use the app, seriously. So I can't say that it goes so fast, technology, but moving from an investment banking or a banking world to healthcare, you just have to make that transition. It's your willingness to learn. And I did all the jobs in the pharma industry. When I say I did sales rep, product manager, sales, marketing, everything. So I showed everyone that I was not worried to go back, you know, and go back means that you grow in investment banking, you make that much salary, and then you go, then, I do it again. This is you decide this, and as much as you're willing to do it, it will happen.
So one more question, right? So what were the transferable skills you had when you move from one sector to the other? There might be certain skill sets which are common.
So I don't know what you studied, but I said commercial, so I learned business. Yeah. I can sell. Yeah, okay. I can analyze, and somehow I can do PowerPoint. So, you know, you just do a nice PowerPoint with some analytical and some numbers, and that's it. The one thing that I was missing is this health, and not the knowledge about the patient. So first, I know nothing about anatomy, so you know, this is the whole thing. It's really the willingness to learn all the topics, the interacting with a pharmacist, a nurse, a doctor, as someone that has been a doctor for a long time that tells you, yes, this drum, this thing, that. You need to listen. And they make you read these research papers and clinical trials. What we're doing today, this is why I'm here, is that the clinical trials is as nice as it can be understood by a patient, because understanding a protocol is a lot of data, but a data that no one can understand except the doctor. And so you need to transfer the skills you can. I can, with my sales speech, get a patient to understand a protocol. I can tell you I've done it many, many times. But you will transfer the skills in the space you want if you're just, if you've done banking, you know so many skills that you will apply. Now you will face all the doctors that tell you you don't understand anything about science, and you just have to be confident. And confidence in a woman, we're a woman panel here, it has to be stronger than the others. That's all I can say. And I was confident, I was crazy, but I was confident I could succeed. I don't know if I've succeeded. I'm just telling you this thing.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
We have time for 1 or 2 questions. Okay.
Okay, hi, this is Kala. I come from the tech world. I've done everything what you mentioned, from starting from technical to right now I'm into pre-sales, business development. So yeah, coming back to this topic, to Sadev and Madeline on the data, right? We are all talking about data now. With healthcare, especially with healthcare, there's privacy attached to it, right? So patient, their medical records. So, and when we talk about US, they're HIPAA compliant, where you need to be really careful with your data, with the patient data. So with that aspect, how did you like come up with this app and also working on, you know, data analysis and your AI, where you need to be really careful with their, with the patient records? How do you see that transforming your vision? Because there will be restrictions, right? There will be restriction, integration to insurance company or to hospitals. There will be restrictions on sharing data between different entities with your data. So how do you think that you could really come up with, I don't need a solution, but then it's something which I think with healthcare you may want to, or you may already have experienced that, or, you know, yeah. That's going beyond, okay.
Well, I would say the challenging part of that is not the technical part, so you can't take care of all of the cybersecurity stuff. There's so many metrics that you can measure it, and actually third parties can measure it for you. The tough part about that is having the right communication with the hospital, that you are not actually using patient information. So for our case, all we want is the images. We don't need any sort of patient information, being it the name of the patient, their age, their sex, anything about the patient. So the thing that you need to show is that I'm actually taking images. It has nothing to do with me figuring out who the patient is. It's not a super rare disease that based on the disease that I can track that, okay, this is the patient. It's the second leading cause of death. So I would say the communication part and giving them the feeling that, okay, it's actually safe. Talking about HIPAA compliant, AWS, Amazon is actually HIPAA compliant itself. So as a startup, if I'm a software company working on AWS, I don't have to care about HIPAA compliance, it's already there. Just being able to communicate it with the hospital that it's there, you don't have to worry about this, we're not accessing patient information, I would say that's the challenging part. It was off?
Yeah, it was off. But we could hear you, so I didn't say anything. Could you hear her when she talked? Yeah. So, I mean, I can only add, there's HIPAA compliance, you know, PDPA here, and then there's this fun thing in Europe, yeah, GDPR. And so you have to respect all these things. Technically, none of us can play with it. We wouldn't exist in an instant if something happened. But I remember a few months back, someone got hacked in Singapore. They're still alive. Just hackers happen. They're better techs on this one side than on the other, okay? Just I think the evolution that we're all living through is how our data are being used. But you all have Facebook on you and Siri and this, and they can, this AI world is that they are listening and understanding and showing you what you want to hear in the evening before you go to bed. This is AI. Now, we need, as people, to be convinced that startups or whoever is using your data in the health environment is to do best, yeah, to help you improve, you know, they say improve your outcomes. And unless the population gets convinced that it's the truth, then there's going to be resistance. But that's what startups are here for. They're disrupting something that is set in stone. The doctor has my medical record, and now it's not belonging to him, it's belonging to me, this is evolution, and this is happening, and I can't explain what's going to happen, but I need to believe that if we work in AI with health data, this is going to happen for the good, yeah? And when you talk to the three of us now, we're in the predictives. We can, the three of us, tell you what medicine to take, what will happen to you, and which doctor you should talk to. You need to accept it, and until you accept it, we can't do much. So this is something that is in process. I didn't accept it myself. I'm just saying this is something you work on, and then you're working, the AI is going faster than we can absorb. But we can all predict what you will take, what you will have, and we just don't know how to use it. And that's because artificial intelligence is going faster, the machine is learning faster than us, and we're absorbing it. I think it's the magic of this AI, but I don't even know how to measure it. Some people are going to grab, integrate it, and make a revolution out of it, but it's happening. And whether or not we accept it, Facebook and all these guys have started it before we wanted to. And so, would you accept that if I tell you in 3 days you're going to have a stroke? Would you accept if I tell you in 12 hours you're not going to go to work because you're going to have a migraine? I can even tell you which drug to take. This is what is scary. But people are moving. Genotype testing exists because we can tell you which targeted therapy. And it's not me, it's Roche. Roche bought it a lot of money, the Foundation Medicine. And we still don't accept it. But it's happening. So revolution happened this way. It's happening. I don't understand the thing about Bitcoin thing stuff, but it's happening as well. So I'm going to guess this is happening and I'll live through it, yeah? And from a doctor, I think it's the same. But,
Do we have any last question? Oh, moment.
She can't answer me. She's on my team. I can't answer. She's on my team. She's in my team. She asked me. I'm like,
yeah, the question is for Dr. Lim. So my background is also a pharmacist, clinical pharmacist in Singapore, NUH. So just want to hear from the point of view of the doctors that before you join the private, and how is the perspective of like clinical doctors, as you mentioned just now, or the clinical biologists, people, pharmacists, nurses in hospital, look at all these wonderful people and company outside, and after you joined. And the third question is how you think that we can make things happen together.
Wow, those are tough questions. So I'm not the typical doctor. So I'm not the typical doctor. I was in institution for a long time, but I stayed because I could do very interesting things. Like I actually did many new surgeries, I had new research, I set up new programs, and I think that's what kept me interested to stay there, and I thought I was helping people. But I have always looked at the private side with envy. But I never quite dared to say it when I was in the public. You know, as I told you, you're taken like you are the pariah and you are out to the dark side. Now, they really told me. I mean, I think my chief told me of the hospital, you're going to the dark side. Yeah. Okay. So when I'm out there, as I told you, I don't feel very welcomed. Actually, sometimes back at the public hospital, it is true. No one's fault. I think it's just the whole system. It takes time to change, and I think we need to try changing it. We need to try changing it. Maybe by giving back more. You know, maybe we should try to bridge the public and the private sector a little bit better. I don't think enough is being done, especially in healthcare. I think when it's the investor side and all that of things, things move. But for healthcare itself, you know, like pharmacists and doctors and all that, there's this huge distrust, as you may know. I mean, they think you're no longer serving patients if you're out in private sector, which is, of course, not true. All right. I don't know whether I've answered your question. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was our last question for tonight. So thank you again to Galen Growth Asia, SGInnovate for having us tonight and co-organizing this event. Thank you to our amazing panelists and to all of you for spending your evening with us. For now, we have some drinks for you in the back, so help yourself, chat to each other, talk to each other, get to know each other, and hopefully our panelists will stay for a little bit longer to answer a few more questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's do a little social media picture somewhere.
Okay.
Dario, can you take a picture of us?